Hey, how we doing, Philip?
Good, Matt. How are you today?
Doing great, doing great. Looks like we're live on YouTube to start off with. We were just talking about this. We put these out on YouTube, then we repurpose it among email, all the rest of our socials. So we'll have quite a few people viewing afterwards too. But excited to do this today, man. And I love to see the Cardinals thing in the in the back there too.
All
Yeah,
the birds through the years from the 1800s to today. There we go.
there we go, man. Yeah, because you have two boys, right?
I do, and it's funny. You said we're live on YouTube. Every day it shows up Mr. Beast and then my face because we do a lot of YouTube videos. So I try to tell my boys I'm just as big as Mr. Beast. But
I was going to say you're the next Mr. Beast. There we go. I love it, man. Yeah, I was going to say we're getting ready, hopefully, to bring the boys to a Cardinals game here soon too. They're full swing with T-ball now. I'm coaching my 4-year-old, so it should be a fun year, man.
It's for me, it's one of the biggest joys of my life is watching your kids play and watching them play. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, the adrenaline rush is bigger than you playing yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what it's cool. Like there's actually out somewhere near Mom's house, HQ, there's a little Ninja Warrior. I don't know if you've seen American Ninja Warrior, the show, but it's picture that for like 4 to teenagers, 4-year-old to teenagers. And we have my 6-year-old and 4-year-old are extremely into like the little Ninja Warrior competitions, and watching that's like, I mean, it's awesome, but it's also nerve-wracking for us for sure. So
I'd love to hear your kids are active, right? Instead of playing video games, they're out there doing Ninja Warrior courses. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're very, very into it, man. So it's fun. Well, awesome. Philip, I know it's been a little while since we got to catch you up. So I was excited to have you on for that too. But again, everybody's you're jumping on, say hello, say where you're watching from, jump in the comments here. I've got plenty of questions teed up on my end, but I also would love for people to jump in and use this as a time to use you as a resource for our entire community. So feel free to ask questions. I know we've done these in the afternoon. I really enjoy kind of like the coffee and questions format, in the mornings here. So appreciate you being flexible with timing and whatnot. I know, again, our goal with these is really to bring in, industry experts like yourself, have you educate our audience on the lessons that you've learned over the years and, how you see the world evolving on your side. So everybody, Philip Vincent here, founder and CEO at Mom's House. I know I came on, I think it was 2021 sometime. I came to your guys' place and interviewed you live there. So appreciate you doing the virtual version today. But you're a St. Louis native like me. You're a big family guy like me. I know you were started as a home builder and developer, and then over the years, really, started Mom's House, and excited to hear about all that stuff today. So can you maybe start there and talk a little bit more about your background, your journey, how you got into this, and excited to kick it off from there?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And, thank you for having me on here today. I think if me and you got together and had a beer together, the first thing we'd probably start talking about after our families is what's the world like right now with real estate? What's going on in the real estate? How are people finding deals? I talk about real estate so much. My wife, when we go out to dinner, she's like, can we not talk about real estate tonight? I'm usually out with other couples that are also in real estate. Like, we love real estate. And I think, providing value to anyone listening right now, I love to talk about the source of deals. Where are the best deals coming from? It's one of my favorite topics for real estate investors. I've been doing this for 25 years now. I'm old. I started when I was 20 and now I'm 45. So this is my 25th year in real estate. And boy, have things changed, right? They're continuing to change, and you either embrace that or you reject it. That's up to you on what you want to do. And I think my start, the older you get, you start to get more honest with yourself. And you said it earlier, I started off as a developer and a home builder. I didn't really like that journey. I really didn't like that part of the business. I think, being honest with myself, I really only wanted to pick out the colors. I was more of a designer in my head than I was a developer. That was the part I enjoyed. And so it took me a long time to understand that my personality, I really like to wholesale. One of my favorite things to do is to be belly to belly with the seller and try to help them with their problems. Mm-hmm. And, starting in senior living back in 2011, what I found is that senior living produces some of the best real estate leads that I've ever found. And I'm happy to share everything about that today with you guys. If you think about, we're real estate people, we buy bricks and sticks. That's the tangible thing, but you're buying it from a human. And normally that human is going through some sort of change, whether it's they just had a new baby, now they need a bigger house, or maybe their first house, or somebody just got a divorce, now they need to sell the house, or maybe a death, right? A probate case, like that, that's a thing. Mm-hmm. And a really, really big thing that nobody talks about, really, except for Mom's House, is this, 7 out of 10 Americans over the age of 65, Matt, are going to move into senior living, some sort of long-term care before they pass away. 7 out of 10. Mm-hmm. Tens and tens of millions of people. And the baby boomers, even though I've been doing this since 2011, you guys are not behind. It's starting right now in the year 2023. The oldest of the boomers are starting to hit right now, and for the next 15 years, this is going to get bigger and bigger. It's so big that they call it the silver tsunami, and our own government is trying to scramble to understand how behind we all are as a country. And so, guys, this is where the best leads come from. And my journey, how, where I started off from development and in buying real estate, I'm just like you guys. I've tried it all. I've done the direct mail. I've done pay-per-click. I've done bandit signs. I've done text message blasting. I've done cold call. I've done all of it. And I remember one of the ones I remember the best was we spent 25 grand on one direct mail campaign. And Matt, not only did we not buy a single house, we didn't get a single phone call from that campaign. And that kind of hits in the gut, you know what I mean, a little deeply. And I feel like anyone listening that wants to get into real estate, there's 100 ways to do this business. We all get to pick and choose which one we want to do. And I've just kind of got a different spin on it just because I've tried all the other ways.
Yeah. Can you maybe talk more about how you found that niche as well? Like, I love to, I mean, I know you said, you were more into the design aesthetics of housing than even like the, construction or rehab or anything like that. But can you maybe talk through how you found this kind of niche for Mom's House and started that, the company right now?
Yeah, I would say it probably started back, even though I started in 2011, probably 2005, 2006. I really was like a lot of people. I thought the only way to sell a house was through a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. And I thought this word wholesaling, I kept hearing this, or wholesalers. I thought it was like this tiny little thing. And I was naive. I was 6 years into the business and didn't think wholesaling was very big. And I started figuring out it was bigger than I thought it was. And of course, with my journey of trying to figure out where the best leads come from back in 08, 9, and 10, it was foreclosures, right? Mm-hmm. We all thought foreclosures is where the best deals came from. And I started working for a company that did foreclosures. And Matt, I knew about deals 6 months early, but they had something called a look back period where it was either 3 or 4 weeks where it had to be exposed to the public before the investors could buy it. And I was like, man, I knew about this 6 months early, but then at week, day 21, everyone knew about it. I was no better. And so I was like, wait, there has to be a better way. I started working with a local company here in St. Louis that did acquisitions. And that year in 2011, I think we bought 66 houses. And so I think it was like at the end of the year, we started looking at the 66 sellers and having just an open discussion about what is the avatar, or I'll say the word stereotype. What was the stereotype or the avatar that sold us their house? What did they look like? And I'll ask the audience right now, think about the last 5 houses you bought. What was the average age of that seller? Were they 28 years old or were they 82 years old? And everybody's like, well, almost always they're 82 years old. But yeah, it's because they're moving into senior living. And we started, telling this story. It was like, Dad passed away 8 years ago. Mom's been doing the best she can. She just had a fall. She's going to live, but she had to have a hip surgery. And in 3 weeks, when she gets out of rehab, she can't move back home. The doctor said she can't move back home. Now the adult children, the adult daughter Judy, we call her, she's scrambling, trying to figure out what's the best thing to do for mom, how are they going to pay for it, what is the best care, is she going to live by where mom lives, is she going to move out where daughter Judy lives? Families that get along don't get along during this process because it's so stressful. And sometimes the final straw is when the real estate agent shows up and says, clean this place out, this forever home that they've been in for 40 plus years, and then says, hey, to get top dollar, we have to do this rehab. This daughter Judy's like, no, I don't want to do that. And so in 2011, Brian, that the Fashion House, he said, you should go do that. You should go start talking to senior living communities. And that was the origin story of how this started. And Matt, I did everything wrong. I showed up guns a-blazing with my big personality, walking in, I'm an investor, I'm a real estate agent, and I want to buy all the houses from all these, older people moving into senior living or nursing homes, right? I said everything wrong. And I had tenacity and maybe silliness, I just kept going back and kept learning, and I kept doing it wrong. And, if you show up as an investor, all they hear is dun, dun, dun. All they hear is shark. Because think about it. I mean, investors have a reputation for, taking advantage of people, and seniors have a reputation for getting taken advantage of. And I built a business around that. It's like, oh man, that's oil and water. And the idea is that when you do it the right way, senior living totally gets it. They totally get it, Matt. They have a customer that's going to live with them for only 28 months on average. Only 28 months. And I add months under the front end of the stay because sometimes I finally came up with an analogy that I like about senior living. I want to share it with everybody. Is like senior living is kind of like a car dealership, but they sell cars all day long, but they don't buy the trade in. And so think about what would happen to the car dealership industry today if they stopped buying the trade in. People would still buy new cars, there's no doubt, but it would slow down the process. And I don't want senior living to get into the home buying business because that's what Mom's House does. But what I found is they spend millions of dollars a month to try to get people to come do tours at their community, only to push them right back away and say, go find a real estate agent. And when you figure that out, please come back and see us. And I'm like, what a harebrained idea to make the customer come to you, then push them away. Because basically, Matt, they are selling housing. Let's be honest here. Senior living sells housing, but they don't embrace the housing that they live in currently. And I think that's the genius or the magic of Mom's House. It's like, it's so obvious when you hear it said that way. It's like, well, yeah, they need an easier way and they need to be treated right. And so that's how Mom's House was born.
Wow. Yeah. And for everybody jumping in and joining us, welcome too. If you can jump in the chat, say where you're watching from. Always love to see people saying hello there. Again, feel free to ask questions. I've got a ton teed up for Philip. I know I'm fascinated with your guys' model and how you guys are evolving the company, and then especially in today's market. But I want to give you guys the opportunity first and foremost to ask questions. So feel free to jump in the chat if you want to start there too. One thing I was curious about. I mean, I know just like you mentioned, you've got, you strong at wholesaling. You can, if you want to lead with it, you can have a big personality and all of that. Like, I love how you framed where you said, hey, in the end, you're solving a problem for the seller. Can you maybe talk through the right way to think about sales, the right way to think about real estate from a sales perspective, how to approach those conversations, how to solve problems for the seller like that?
Yeah, I would tell you right now, my life completely flipped when I started working with sellers that wanted my service versus trying to convince them to sell me their house. I don't sell anyone anything, Matt. I mean, I don't have that kind of, I'm not a ninja negotiator. I'm probably good at negotiation, but I can't convince someone to sell me their house. And so when we look for where is the best leads come from, first thing I look for is true motivation. Who has true motivation? And the thing about seniors is they listen to three people. They listen to their pastor, their doctor, and their lawyer. Right. And so when the doctor says, hey, you can't live on your own anymore, they listen. And, and I don't have to convince the family or the senior that it's time to sell. And this is a good question. A lot of people do direct mail, and I've done tons of direct mail. So I get that business. When we mail to a list that's over the age of 65, have lived in the house over 20 years and has, let's say, 50% equity, why do we mail to that list? It's because we're hoping we're going to spray on them enough times where they raise their hand. And with senior living, if me and you were brothers, Matt, we don't accidentally take mom to senior living. There's a damn good reason why we took mom to senior living. We don't take a healthy mom or dad to senior living. There's a reason. And so it's kind of like I wait for that hand raise and they say, now is the time. And I don't know if I answered your question or not, but when you start to work with people that way, it's you're pulling them along the process, not pushing them to sell. And let's talk about that pull a little bit. It's not a little deal to buy someone's forever home, or let alone have them move out of their forever home into, let's just call it their final destination, most likely. That's a big deal. It's an emotional deal. And the stress that the family's under is great. And they're looking for things to go easy or right. They want something to go right all of a sudden because they feel like they've been getting their bad news in lumps or groups. Mom fell down. That's not good. Mom had to have surgery. That's not good. Mom had to go to rehab. That's not fun. Mom had to go to senior living. And she's saying, hey, to her daughter, can you please take me home? And daughter Judy knows she can't, right? This is an emotional time. And I think that last straw, we talked about it earlier, is now they know they're going to need to sell that house because here's the facts. The average senior living community costs $6,000 a month. So let's think about our own moms and dads right now. Do my parents have $6,000 a month each to move into senior living? I don't think so. Not based, unless they're going to go into their savings really hard. About 95% of Americans can't afford it. Mm-hmm. The way they afford it is they sell Mom's House.
Yep. Yeah. And when they're going through that process, like I know, again, you're taking that real, problem solving mindset. What are some of the other resources that you have lined up for like those families and things? Like, can you kind of talk through when you say problem solving, what are all the problems that you typically are solving beyond just, the house itself?
Yeah. Off the top of my head is stuff. What do you call a hoarder that you like? I call them an aggressive collector. Mom wasn't quite a hoarder. She was a bit of an aggressive collector. Somebody told me that one day and I'm like, oh, that's fun. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that. The stuff can be more daunting than the house sale itself. A lot of people think their tchotchkes are their personality or their life. It's their memories, and their possessions are harder to deal with sometimes than the house sale. So every family has has treasures down to trash, right? Every house has treasures down to trash. The treasures are easy to get rid of, Matt. Guns, gold, stamp collections, all that good stuff, it leaves in 30 seconds because the adult children are usually going to take those things. Then you've got some stuff that has some value, and then you have a lot of just stuff. I don't like to use the J word. I don't like to say junk, but I just stuff. And so I'll give you the example that you and I can both relate to the best. Here in St. Louis, the average estate sale generates between $3,000 and $5,000 in revenue. That's how much all the stuff sold for. The cost to put that sale on averages between $3,000 and $5,000, Matt.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, that's a scary number. It's like, and good luck trying to tell the seller that their stuff is worth nothing. To me, I think it's even worse than nothing because of the time it took to get to zero. Wouldn't you hate to sell everything for $5,000 and the sale cost you $5,000, and then you're like, what was the point of any of that? And it took us stress and 90 days if you're lucky, and by the way, that's the thing about this situation. If mom's going to be in senior living for 28 months and it's going to take you 3 months from start to finish to do the sale, you have to do the rehab before you can rehab it, right? And now you need to rehab it, and now you didn't make what you thought on Dad's Beanie Baby collection, and you thought that was where the money was going to come from to put the new deck on. It's just not the case. And we use something called the cost versus value guide. If you guys don't know what that is, it's amazing. For the past 20 plus years, they've been chronicling what it costs to put in different housing items, from roofs to windows to, everything that you can do to a house. It's listed there, and you can even break it down by your MSA. Because some people, you can take the national average, but people are like, oh, in my area, it's different. Well, you can actually pick, if you live in Boston, you can pick Boston. If you live in San Diego, you can pick San Diego. What's telling about it is there's only one thing you can do to your house that gives you more value than the cost. One thing. Everything else, Matt, it costs you more than the value you return. And so when somebody uses that calculator, they're like, well, hold on, I'm going to spend $50,000 on these items that the real estate agent asked me to do, and I'm going to get $30,000 back in value. Why in the world would I do that?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You shouldn't. And the magic for, guys like me and almost every investor that's listening right now is that's the point. I can tear a bathroom out and put a new bathroom in for $5,000 or $6,000, where the cost for St. Louis on that site, it shows you it's about $24,000 to do a new bathroom, one new bathroom.
Man, yeah, that adds up quick.
Well, and the value you get back is around $12,000.
Yeah.
Who wants to lose half of their money in a time when we need money for mom, right? You're like, hold on, this doesn't make any sense. And that's, and I think, let's just talk about the industry right now. The second biggest real estate agent in our town has these billboards that say, fix it now, pay later. I think that's super telling. There's something, the second biggest agent in our town, fix it now, pay later. It's because they know to get top dollar right now. And I've been around so long. I remember in 8, 9, 10, and 11, the houses that sat were the dated houses, but the houses that sold were the ones. And I think, the market's weird right now. How can it be good and bad at the same time? It kind of is, because we have no inventory. But the houses that are selling for top dollar are the ones that are representing a 2023 style, right? If it feels like 2005, you're not going to get as much. If it feels like 1970, you're definitely not going to get as much. And so the point is, even like things like Curbio, there's these people out here. The retail world understands that there's a problem, is that to get top dollar, it has to be in tip-top shape. The sellers are not HGTV people. They've seen the shows, but they're not cut out to do the rehab. And that's where they realize very quickly, why would I do all that effort without any of the return? And they would rather, if they're treated fairly, just sell it to someone like mom's house.
Yeah. You bring up a good point too on the market front. I was going to ask about that, on like, how are you guys changing anything with your process? Like, how are you kind of adjusting in the last 6 months?
I hate to say when the world burns, it's good for me, but it kind of does. I've been doing this 25 years, not the past 6 months removed, but the 2 years before that. It was weird time. I mean, you threw anything out on the market, it would sell for $50,000 over asking with no inspections. Well, that stopped, right? That stopped again. And I always say the market was kind of drunk at the time. The market was drunk. It didn't make any sense. Those people that bought houses for $100,000 over asking with no inspections, they're going to be sad when they go to sell. And I'm already starting to hear stories about like they paid $700 for it, they have a job change, and now they can only get $550 for it. Well, that's not a little, that's a big deal for people. And so the market changing is good for what we do. When retail is not as strong of an option, they're looking for alternatives. And I think, the as is cash buyer world or the ugly world and all those things that are out there, there's that, we're kind of a warm hug and a kiss in the middle, where we're kind of like the anti-iBuyer because we work in the senior living world and understand what's going on from a senior living perspective. And that's kind of, how our niche is different. But to answer your question, when the retail market slows down, that's good for our value prop just because they have less options in their mind.
Makes sense. Good question from Andy here. Here you go. How can you help with the stuff without getting into the stuff business?
Great question. I love the show American Pickers and I love Pawn Stars and all those things, but I'm telling you guys right now, you don't want to get in the stuff business. Remember the stat I just gave you about the average sale makes between $3,000 and $5,000, but the cost to put the sale on is $3,000 and $5,000. That's not much. There's not a big margin there. A lot of the people are pickers themselves that get into that business, and it can be overwhelming. How to not get into stuff business is having an arsenal of people that are specialists. If somebody has a salt and pepper shaker collection, Andy, then that's who I'm going to find. I'm going to find a guy that collects salt and pepper shakers. And I've literally had that happen multiple times, salt and pepper shaker collections. I don't know about it, but I know who to contact. Yeah. I've got my buddy, Brian, that runs something called Selkirk. It's a high end in St. Louis. It's the highest end of antiques and, these things. So if I have something high end, I'm calling Brian and say, hey, Brian, got something. Come on in, right? Let's appraise this. Let's help this family. We've done, paintings and all this kind of stuff. And it's intriguing to me. But then most of the time it's the opposite. I call Byron. He's my clean out guy. And it's just, it's going to go in the dumpster. That's where it's going to go. But here's how you do it, guys. Nobody wants to think that their parents' stuff is getting thrown away. And so what we do is Byron, he's a pastor. And so anything he can take that's in good condition, he's going to bring it back to his congregation and repurpose it. And people love that stuff. And I'm not saying you have to get a pastor to be your clean out guy. I'm saying that you have to paint the picture that, and let's talk about charity for a second. One of my favorite charities is the foster program, foster care. When people turn 18, they age out of the foster care program and they give them housing vouchers, Matt, but they don't give them any money for stuff. And so we're starting to work directly with that outreach program for foster care, that we could give that stuff to them. It's usually through church groups that they can come in and pick out that dresser, because it's really hard to get rid of mom's stuff because, it's let's say it's 1970s furniture. It's in great shape, but just today's grandkids don't want it. They'd rather go to IKEA and buy something new. And so what is the best use for that stuff? And I love this charity because the foster program is near and dear to my heart, but I think that is the highest and best use. If your family doesn't want it, let's get it to somebody else who really, really needs it, who has no money. And so from treasures down to trash, you're going to need estate sale people. You're going to need buyout people. So buyout is just coming in one number and it's over, which is a lot easier than an estate sale. You need auctioneers sometimes, and then you just need straight, I'm going to say junk haulers, but I hate to use the word J. I like to just say clean out people. So there's 4 or 5 different job titles. Now, some of those people might do all of those things, but very rarely do they do them all well. So you want to, in your local area, find those people. And guys, keep in mind, some of my best leads for buying houses come from those guys as well. When they're, what has to happen before it gets rehabbed, they have to clean it out. So a lot of my junk guys bring me house deals all the time because I look at sales as a conversation, right? The clean out happens right before the rehab. Well, that's perfect timing for me.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And build your own team locally there. Yeah. I mean, it's, you are right. Like you said, you're trying to, have highest and best use for all that stuff. And that's what people want to know too, is that they're, what they're, passing along to you can be used and help other people as well. Like you're again, put on that problem solving hat there when you're having those conversations with people. So, I do love that. I know one thing, again, good question, Andy. Appreciate that. Feel free, guys, to jump in the Q&A, ask questions there. I want to prioritize that and give you guys Philip's time as much as possible there. As you're talking about kind of that the right mindset on how to deal with sellers as well. You mentioned that when you first started getting into this, you came in, guns a-blazing, you really would lead in a way that people would smell, a shark coming. Can you talk through any other common mistakes you really see there for people, especially when they're newer? Because I know we have a lot of people who are newbies watching this as well, getting into this, that, you see as just the wrong approach to take to make sure people can, learn from things that you've seen in the past.
Totally. I can help you guys with this. People care about what's in it for them. And what I see when people are out networking and trying to build relationships, they're very self-centered. Are they a taker or a giver? And senior living is really cognizant of this. They've got their wall up. They want to not trust you, right? Because their job is to protect seniors. So they should have a pretty high wall. And so as soon as you can come from a place of giving versus a place of taking, and what do I mean by that? I'm going to tell on my real estate agents right now. They're trained to give their card to everyone they meet everywhere in life. Boom, boom, boom. They're just giving cards out, like you just spray and pray. And I'm just like, guys, that's not. And here's the other thing. They'll say things like, I'm $1 million producer. Last year, my team did 183 deals. It's all self-serving, self-grandizing talk. And senior living is like, cool. What does that have to do with the people I'm trying to help?
Right.
And so slow down. I know that was hard for me, right? I had to slow down too and understand that there's a language of senior living. There's a way to do things the right way. When they know, it's easy to be known. It's a little harder to be liked, but we're shooting for that T word, to be known, liked, and trusted. When you are, I have a text in my phone right now from a guy that owns a local community here in St. Louis, one of the high-end communities. He wants me to come in next Tuesday and present to his staff because the person that they have one person in mind that has a house that they don't, it must be a hoarder. I haven't asked yet, but if there's something going on with the house where they're like, Phil, this is the right one for you. Come in and talk to the staff, and then we'll give you this person as well. It's like they're setting me up on a T as the guy that comes in and fixes problems.
Yep.
That's, by the way, awesome, right? When you're set on that T, you're going to buy a house that day because that community is saying, talk to this guy. He's the one that fixes it.
Yeah. Well, what is for people trying to build that trust, build that reputation locally like that? Do you have any kind of playbook they can follow there? And how, if you, like, for example, if you were starting over today, how would you really approach it?
Yeah, you want to find out where they congregate, and then you want to find out who are really having the tough conversations. When I started in 2011, Matt, I would take a lunch or a coffee break with anyone that would say yes, and I spent a lot of time with people that were never going to give me consistent leads. Like a wheelchair ramp guy, right? He might get you some deals, but that's not consistently over time. The people that I train about and I teach about, like, I truly don't know the lifetime value of their relationships with them because I still do deals with them to this day. So somebody I met in 2011, I'm still doing deals with. Yeah. Imagine if one direct mail campaign did that, right? And it's a relationship business. What's cool about what we do is it's not dictated by who the president is. It's not dictated by what the economy is doing. Like, people are going to continue to age and move into senior living. And it's getting ready to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so how do you start to build those relationships is being around them, rubbing elbows, volunteering. Networking and volunteering are kind of the same thing to me. But for this conversation, like, there's volunteering opportunities in senior living every day. There's networking opportunities in senior living. It's kind of one of these things that's hiding in plain sight. And after people learn about the industry, they're like, man, let's give you the St. Louis example. I work with probably 10 different communities here in St. Louis, but Matt, there's 300 communities just in our St. Louis metro market. So I'm 12 years in here, and I've done 10 out of 300. I mean, I've barely scratched the surface in my own area.
Wow.
That's how big this is. And so people are always like, Phil, I love your program. Can I have the whole state of Utah? And I'm like, no. No, you can't. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, no, that doesn't make it. It's like having one real estate agent in the whole state of Utah. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's how big this issue is.
Yeah. And like you said, with the, the whole like silver tsunami coming, seems like it's going to be only grow exponentially, right?
Totally. Yeah. A wise man once told me, you're going to work in senior living whether you want to or not, so you might as well embrace it. And I'm like, that's kind of true, and I really think people that embrace this are going to be having the lead source. And then, once you have the lead source, then whether you keep them as rentals or wholesale them or whatever you might do with them, the whole thing here, where this conversation started was, where are the best leads coming from? And I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anyone. They come from senior living.
Yeah. One interesting thing, I know, obviously, like, you're working on Mom's House. I love the logo back there and all that. You guys have a good setup, and you have a really cool venue too. I need to get over there and play pickleball again.
Yeah, played yesterday.
There you go. Can you maybe talk through kind of the Mom's House mission, the model, how people can get involved? Like talk a little bit more about your guys' program too.
Yeah. When I first started with this, it took me, a year or two to really get my head wrapped around what I was doing wrong and to build it the right way. So I started back in 2011. I was on something called Bigger Pockets in 2014, and I didn't say the word senior living one time on that giant podcast because I had this mentality that I didn't want anyone else in St. Louis to do it. And as I kept growing and looking at how big this problem was and realizing I'm barely scratching the surface in my own market, I knew the right thing to do would be to put daughter Judy first. And as a company, we try to really look at the senior and that family and make the decisions that help them the most. The senior living industry wants it, needs it, gets it. Investors totally need it and understand it. Of course, they're looking for highly motivated people with equity that have to sell, right? That's obvious. So what we try to do as a company, our mantra is to put daughter Judy first. We're trying to be solutions focused, not dwell on the problem, but be, how many solutions can we give to them? And, we talked about the house today. We've talked about the stuff today, but they need elder care attorneys. They need aid and attendance benefits providers. We won't go into too depth of what that means, but basically if you're moving into senior living and someone served in wartime, you get this credit, which is a big deal. VA benefits, placement agents. There's this thing out here that's kind of like a real estate agent for the senior living world. They're called placement agents. That's just 5 of I would say, 10, 15 different job titles that you can really sink your teeth into. And that's the idea of we have a certification is what we have. So we call it senior transition specialist. So if we start back about, you shouldn't show up as a real estate investor because all I hear is shark. You also shouldn't show up as a real estate agent because, guys, that's how they've been fixing this problem for the past 40 years. So their brain kind of shuts off. If you walk into senior living and say, I'm a real estate agent, like, cool, go stand over here by the other agents that we've already know, right? And so don't do that. You have to be something different. And so we have a certification. It's called the Senior Transition Specialist to become an STS and work with Mom's House. We train you on all the things that I did wrong. It's basically a manuscript of everything that I did wrong. And we show you, spend a lot of time on who to meet with, what to say, but we spend a lot of time too on what not to say. And I think sometimes we use this analogy of the crock pot and the vase as a personality type. And a lot of investors are more like a crock pot. They're utilitarian, they simmer. They're not necessarily beautiful. They're kind of blunt, where a vase is more fragile. And you have to be more vase to build relationships in senior living because before they get to know you, they need to know that you care. And so that's hard for most investors. And so we have this training to become a senior transition specialist, to work with us nationwide. We've built this program, made it very affordable for people just because we need more people to work with us. We've been building relationships for the past 3 years, Matt, nationwide in the senior living industry. And so senior living is like, we like this. We're in their CRMs now. I didn't dream big enough. Like how big Mom's House has gotten, it's kind of absurd sometimes when I think about it because we're part of the senior living sales process now, and we're still just scratching the surface. So I need people nationwide that want to work with us. It's not too late, right? We're still, this is still growing, and we're looking for people that want to take this seriously and get this training.
Love it. And you said nationwide. Is there any limitations in terms of location or market, anything like that? Or
No, I'll use the example of St. Louis. We have 4 or 5 people that are part of our program here. If they know 10 communities, just like I know 10 communities, that means we're only 50 out of 300, right?
Yeah.
We're still scratching the surface. I'll let you know if we have 30 people here, maybe one day. Our goal is not to oversaturate. We work with our leads exclusively, right? We just don't blast it out to everyone because we don't think that's the right thing for daughter Judy. Well, let me give you an example about senior living. This is probably good for everybody to hear. When you start looking at senior living communities, your name goes into this list and it gets shot out to like 50 different communities, and they call it bricking your phone, where you just throw your phone in a drawer for 2 days because those 50 communities are bombarding you, trying to get you to come do a tour. And so if me and you are adult children trying to help our mom, the experience sucks. Like the experience with senior living, how it's done today. And there's a name out there that I won't say, but they have Joan London as their spokesperson. Their reputation is just not the best, but here's the thing, from a business perspective, they've built a killer business. So I high five them there. But from what is the right way to do this? I would argue that all day long. And the industry kind of knows that, but they're also beholden to them because they do have a stranglehold on the lead source.
Yep.
I'm getting deep now. I don't know why I'm going into that, but just
No. I mean,
there a little bit.
I just had a couple grandparents go through that whole process too. In the last couple of years. So I definitely, I know how that can be. So
Yeah, it can be frustrating, right, for everybody involved.
Appreciate you breaking that down for us. I know we do have like a special link where you guys, if you go through here, let me pull this up for you. It's momshouse.com/DealMachine.
Yeah.
And I'll share this out for everybody too. If they go through there, is that the best way to get in touch with you too? If they want to get involved, or you're just curious. I want to make sure that obviously appreciate you guys treating our people special there when they're going through that. So
yeah, momshouse.com/DealMachine. Check us out. We have a certification that you can use on your socials to show the world that you're serious about seniors. And guys, if you put people first in senior living and take the time to learn how to do this the right way, you're going to have an endless lead supply of the best leads in real estate coming to you directly. That's how confident I am on this program. And so get the certification. It's going to look great on your resume. It's going to look great on your socials, LinkedIn. I use the example sometime of, and you and I have been around real estate a long time, so you'll get this one. When I network in senior living, people are always showing the size of their check. Right? I don't know why. We're always showing the size of our check in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
In senior living, I've never seen one person's check yet. Nobody's ever shown me their check yet. And the reason why, it's just a very, very different industry, right? Senior living and real estate are very different. And so this appeals to people that have a little more empathy. And I'll say that a different way. I think our product is better suited for female investors than it is male investors. When have you ever heard that? Probably never, that I know of, just because I don't know of anybody else that would say that. But the reason why I say that is stereotypically women have more empathy than men do. And it takes an empathetic, caring, giving soul to break into senior living to show them that you care. And where some people that are too transactional, it might not be the best thing for them, just because I always say a leopard can't change his spots for very long before he goes back to being a leopard. And so this is for people that can put people first. If you can put love in your heart and start with the person and giving them all those solutions, there'll be tons of real estate deals right behind that. But it won't go the other way around.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I mean, I love your guys' mission, love your approach. I really appreciate you coming on and being able to lay this out for our audience as well. And again, we're going to be sharing this out quite a bit afterwards too. So I appreciate you guys just being an ongoing resource for the DealMachine community. But I know if you guys do go through that momshouse.com/DealMachine link, they'll take great care of you. They'll know that you're coming from us. So is there any other way, Philip, to get in touch with you directly, or how else can people get involved with you guys?
Yeah, or momshouse.com. Check us out online just to see, what our mission is about. But definitely use the link momshouse.com/DealMachine to become certified. We used to drag people out to St. Louis for that certification, but now it can be done online. So you could get certified this weekend, right? You could do that, spend the time learning about this. This is something you can sink your teeth into that's not going to go away. It's not trendy and sexy what I do. People getting older is not like a trendy thing. I always found it funny the past 3 years, like text message blasting and cold calling got popular again. It's like, and then text message blasting kind of got its butt handed to it because of regulations, right? Mm-hmm. This is something that's not going to get regulated away. Seniors, unless we come up with a cure for aging, this is going to continue to be a thing for as long as you want to be in real estate. And that's the exciting part, I think. For me, I don't mind working. I just want to know I'm working towards something that has long-term benefits. Mm-hmm. And I always found it fleeting to do a direct mail campaign. Here's a scary question. If you stopped doing marketing today, how soon would it be before your phone stopped ringing? Fair. A lot of people are like, a week maybe? And I'm like, yeah, I know. And so this is a way to get off that hamster wheel and kind of build something sustainable. So thank you for having me on here, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I always have a good time with you guys, and thanks again for coming on and Andy, great question there. So I'll have to do this again at some point, but appreciate you guys. I know again, if you want to go to it's DealMachine or it's momshouse.com/DealMachine, that's how they can get in touch with you guys. But otherwise, appreciate the time, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, everyone watching, Matt Camp with DealMachine over here, and happy deal finding.